Okay, this is IB History Study Session 1, Part 3, our third and final session, as we will look at the Declaration of Independence, the D of I, processes leading to the Declaration, the influence of other ideas, and the nature of the Declaration itself. So, with the processes leading to the Declaration, we'll start with the Second Continental Congress. In 1775, the Second Continental Congress began to meet and issued the Olive Branch Petition in July of 75, calling for negotiation with the Crown, calling for a redress of their grievances. It was not warlike, it was not a break with Britain, and ultimately it was rejected. Also in July, the Second Continental Congress sent the Declaration of the Causes and Necessity of Taking Up Arms, and in this other text they sent to the king, they mainly list grievances. They bemoan taxation without representation. They bemoan the coercive acts, the declaratory act. They react to the hostility of British soldiers, particularly in Boston, and they bemoan the end of salutary neglect. So that's their list of grievances as we previously discussed in what were the motives toward independence. The Second Continental Congress adopts the Massachusetts militia. They begin raising money. They request money from the states, they try to take out European loans, and they begin to issue paper money, which is the beginning of some massive inflation with the continental dollar. Following this is some military conflict. Lexington Concord had already happened, but after the Second Continental Congress has issued those statements, we had the fall of Fort Ticonderoga, the battle at Bunker Hill. We have Washington driving the British away from Boston in March of 76. And then in July of 1776, they arrive at the vote for independency. So the process leading to it. The delegates from the Assembly are looking, the delegates from the Continental Congress are looking for permission from each of their own states to declare independence. Remember, New York will abstain because the British fleet is hovering off the coast of New York City, prepared to do, really they don't know what, they feared the worst might happen in New York City. But the Virginia delegate Richard Henry Lee calls for a vote on independence, and after a brief recess, they come back with Jefferson's draft. It was written actually initially by Jefferson, revised by a 5-man committee, and then revised by the whole Congress before being adopted. With regard to the influence of ideas on the Declaration of Independence, we should point to perhaps 3 things. And I'll add this since we can point to the Enlightenment in general, John Locke in particular, and English history as well. With regard to the Enlightenment in general, one of the fundamental ideas of the Enlightenment is the social contract theory, that government is an agreement between the governed and the government. The Declaration of Independence draws on this. John Locke in particular, John Locke emphasized the phrase that the government requires consent of the governed, and that a government that loses that consent of the people being governed, that the people have the right, perhaps the duty, to overthrow that government when it becomes destructive of their liberties. he paraphrases / quotes Locke as Locke refers to inalienable, or Locke refers to natural rights of life, liberty, property. The D of I refers to inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And English history, because John Locke wrote in the time period of the Glorious Revolution, where the people of England, tired of fighting in the aftermath of their Civil War and Cromwell's Commonwealth, many, I shouldn't say all of the English people, but the Parliament and many in England wanted to overthrow James II, and they invited his daughter, Mary, and her husband, William of Orange, from the Netherlands, to become the new king in the Glorious Revolution. And so that history, that idealized and unique incident of the Glorious Revolution in particular, as a simple, easy, and logical way to overthrow the government, even when your government isn't all that bad, and replacing it with a slightly better one, was part of English history and tradition, and that idea of natural rights and English rights is a long one. The nature of the Declaration. Here, we could look at it. The Declaration is structured like this. The nature or the structure of the Declaration is this, as a series of logical statements. The initial part of the D of I is an if-then logic statement, you could argue. It says that if the king is a tyrant, then, we'll see if this converts. It did, nice. If the king is a tyrant, then independence is justified. That's basically the initial setup and the preamble of the D of I. It says that when in the course of human events, and they're listing the reasons for their independency, if the King of England is a tyrant, then independence is justified. And they cite English history, they cite the Enlightenment in general, and specifically John Locke. Indirectly, they cite all those things as precedent. Then the bulk of the Declaration is this pages of grievances against the king. And so if you list 45, or however many it is, bad things the king has done that a tyrant would do, what have your couple pages of grievances just stated? King equals tyrant. Therefore, if you have K equals T, then it means you have I equals J, or independence is in fact justified, which is how it concludes. It sets up by saying, if the king is a tyrant, then independence is justified. It gives 40 or some odd reasons why the king is a tyrant. And then the conclusion is, as you have seen, dear reader, including the King of England, whoever's reading this, posterity, other Americans, independence is not a whim. It's not based on caprice. It's not based on selfishness. So they say, it is based on these logical reasons. The king is a tyrant, therefore independence is a just reaction to that.